Previously on Battlestar Galactica.
And with a swish and a flick, she's back together, just like magic. That's exactly how this works.
What is it about a VR6 Corrado that is so appealing that people like me would spend so much time and effort trying to keep one on the road? Well, hey, I'm Brendan, Cliffjumper. Thanks for tuning in to Cliffjumper Cars, and we're just going to talk a little bit today about the specialness of the VR6 Corrado. Now, I heard Jeremy Clarkson in one of his review videos of this car say that driving a VR6 Corrado is the closest thing you can get to driving a Ferrari without actually having a Ferrari. And I would agree. I've driven a lot of Ferraris. Well, not a lot of Ferraris, but I've driven an F430, I've driven an F355, I've driven a 308 GTSI. I've been in a number of other Ferraris. And yeah, I would say the overall feel is pretty similar. There's a certain kinetic feel associated with being in a car this low to the ground that makes these kind of noises, that corners the way it does, and it's just, it kind of, I don't know, puts a smile on your face. And sitting in these Recaro seats, hearing the go fast noises when you mash on the loud pedal, it's not the fastest thing in the world by far, especially since this is a 30-year-old design. And for its time, it was a pretty special car. It held its own performance-wise. I mean, back in the day when I was a hooligan street racer, and I would not shudder to pull up next to a 5.0 Mustang because they were only putting out 215 horsepower. And this, at its 178 horsepower, was actually kind of a close match when you looked at the power to weight ratio, and you know, it really depended on who got the jump off the light. So I made a lot of guys in Mustangs feel bad back in the day. Of course, I was driving a G60 Corrado at that point in time, which is the lighter weight version of this, which had the supercharged 4-cylinder, and it could be tuned up to a pretty impressive amount of power. At its peak, my G60 Corrado dynoed at 236 horsepower at the wheels, which was a lot for back in like the mid-90s, late 90s. And I had done a lot to it to get it to that level. Now this car is not quite as aggressively tuned. I dynoed it a few years ago. It put down 204 horsepower at the wheels, which is not inconsiderable when you take into the equation the fact that this has got a sludge box. It's an automatic transmission, and it's still putting down 204 horsepower. So it's not the slowest thing on the road, but it's not the fastest thing on the road. Nice middle of the road, but it's enough to make you happy. It'll move when you want it to move. It handles great. The seats are comfortable. The ergonomics of this car are wonderful. I've always thought that this car was very Porsche-like. Now, it could be that the same designers that were working on various Porsches of the time were the ones that designed and put together this car. It could be that, I don't know, there's some magic from it rolling off of the exact same assembly line at Carmen as the 911 cabriolets that were being churned out at that time. It's a hand-built car. A hand-built German car comes with its quirks and its weirdnesses. And there's plenty of weird things about this car, but they add to its charm. They add to its character. I don't look at it and think, gosh, that's a terrible feature. I wish they'd done something differently. I mean, there are things about this car that are way ahead of its time. The MFA trip computer in the dash that lets me toggle between elapsed time and your average miles per gallon and instantaneous miles per gallon, your average speed, and what your oil temperature, the outside ambient air temperature, that was all really ahead of its time in the early 90s. Having multiple trip computers to be able to save both your temporary trip, so you could do a leg of a rally and save your time on that, and you could also do the total elapsed time for a rally if you were ever going to do a rally in a Corrado. I have done one. I don't recommend it. The last rally I did over $2,500 worth of damage to the car, and yeah, that was a bad. We were talking about bad life choices in another video. That's a bad life choice. Do not put your Corrado in a rally. Anyway, other features that were ahead of its time: the automatic spoiler that goes up. In US spec, it goes up at 45 miles an hour, because back when they made this, there was a nationwide 55 mile an hour speed limit, and if they had this set to the European standard, which was to deploy at 70 or 75 miles an hour, you never would have seen the spoiler go up here in the US. So they lowered it so that we US drivers could enjoy it in our slower freeway speeds. Now, there are, of course, people that modify it. You could actually put a potentiometer in the spoiler controller, and you can change the speed that it goes up and down. I've not done that because, well, frankly, it's just on my list of things to do, and there have been plenty of other things I've modified in this car. That has not been one of them. But the overall ergonomics, everything is exactly where you would like it to be in this car. Very, very German, very Porsche-like. Buttons are just easy reach, naturally right where you would want them to be. One of the things that I liked about the 93 versus the earlier Corrados, they changed the aesthetics a little bit. So they did some subtle things, like the vents in the earlier models were vertical. They changed to a horizontal vent style, which gives it more of a modern Porsche flavor. And it was very timeless. People get in this interior, and it could be made today. Actually, I would say it's nicer than most of the interiors today, because many of the interiors that are being designed today are very boring. They're very flat, they're very hard, they're harsh, they don't have a lot of character to them. This feels very organic. It's a driver's car. Some of the interior choices are interesting. In the earlier models, the mirror control was up here. They moved it down here to a push button that isn't as easy to break. I like that. They moved the controllers for the windows down here, where you just drop your hand and it naturally falls on them. That's a nice thing. The earlier ones, you had to kind of go sideways and feel around for them on the door, and it was just awkward, not very ergonomic, but I like what they did with that. The sunroof controls, they changed those. These are basically the same controls as you find on the Mark III. They carried over. They did change them at some point during the way the Mark III works. The original had just one button that you pressed it would go to tilt. You pressed it the other direction, it would come back to its neutral, and then you pressed that same one again, and then it would go out and retract and slide forward. It's kind of clunky. On this version, they added a control that gives you different things you could do to make the sunroof retract and extend and tilt and slide. And that's a nice touch. I also like that if this breaks, I can replace it with one from a Mark III, and I won't have to search very hard because there's tons of those in the junkyard. This is kind of a parts bin car. It's a crossover between the Mark II chassis and the Mark III chassis, which means it's got some of the benefits of the Mark II and some of the benefits of the Mark III. And there are some parts that cross over between both of them. So when I've had trouble with my HVAC system, I could go looking for Mark II parts for the interior stuff within the dash. If I needed to replace the rotary dials, I could find Mark III parts that would serve to replace them, and that worked out pretty well too. But, having a Corrado, there's just something about it. People will slow down, like this guy that just slowed down on the freeway to take pictures of the car. There's something about the rarity of it. Some folks who don't know what it is, and they think, wow, that's really interesting and special looking. And it is. It is very interesting. There aren't a lot of these wedge-shaped, snub-nosed little hatchbacks around on the road anymore. And the ones that you do see tend to be in pretty terrible roached out shape. Mine is definitely not a garage queen. It has character. She's got road rash. She's got scratches and scrapes. She's got some areas where the paint's been cracked. Because I drive it, it's got 200,000 miles. I've put 150,000 of those miles on myself. Now granted, she does not get driven every day like she used to. Mostly I take her out to car events. Right now I'm coming from a toy drive where we dropped off toys for Tots for Christmas. And she's got to go back into storage and she'll stay nice and wrapped up until the next car event. But she was driven for a very long time, every day, and she's got the road warrior scars to prove it. But when I pull into an event, like I was just at HRE at a big high-end event, and there were some very, very expensive, very rare cars there. But this car attracts attention. It's, I don't know, there's something special about it. People either know what it is and they know how special it is and they're attracted to it and they want to talk to you about it, or they don't know what it is and they go, what is that? And they want to talk to you about it. So there's something kind of cool about having a unique ride that not everybody has, and you roll in and you get to talk about it. It's something cool about that. I like that. But mostly I like driving it. It brings a smile to my face.
20 minutes later.
I think I literally did blather on for another 20 minutes about the many merits of the Corrado at that point until my GoPro ran out of batteries and cut me off mid-sentence. So rather than subject you to all of that, I think this video's gone on long enough. And it's something interesting about having a weird, rare, quirky car. Of course, it does come along with the challenges. There are a lot of challenges to having a weird, rare, quirky car. Getting parts for them when you need parts is sometimes a challenge. It took me 6 months to find a fender for my car after somebody decided to drive into me at a car show, which was wonderful. But I mean, that can happen to any old, weird, rare car. But this one in particular, there's just something special about the character, something neat about having a Corrado. And there's somebody posted a meme of a bunch of stormtroopers that are all, you know, in white uniforms, and there's the one red one walking into the boombox, and it says, "When you roll into a car show with a Corrado." And I find that meme is like dead accurate true. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Speaking as somebody who has had 4 Corrados, who has put almost 700,000 miles on a Corrado, and not just one. I had 304,000 miles on one. I've got 204,000 miles on my current one, 158,000 miles on another one, and about 60,000 on the least driven of the 4 Corrados that I've had, but just got a wee bit of experience with it. Anyway, if you're a Corrado enthusiast, I hope you enjoyed the video. I apologize for the audio quality. My lavalier mic had come unplugged from the GoPro while I was filming it, and so it was just using the built-in camera here, which isn't that great. So I'm sorry about that, but thanks for hanging in there. Thank you for tuning in. I'm very grateful to be feeling a lot better now, recovered from COVID. I'm up to about 90% capacity, so yay for medical technology, and yay for prayer. Anyway, I hope you are having a good new year. Go out, get in your cars, drive them a lot if they're working. If they're not working, post up some of the projects you have that you are working on. Maybe you've got a weird, rare car that you're working on at home. I'd love to see it. Post a link in the description. Let me know what you're working on. And anyway, be good to one another. God bless. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, if you haven't already, please go ahead and hit like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share it. And if you feel like it, you know, this is one of my things that I do as a labor of love, but I would love for you to partner with me. And if you would head over to Patreon, I'll post a link in the description down here. Love to have a little bit of help from you, and we'll continue putting out lots of great content video this year. God bless. See you soon. Bye-bye.
But wait! There's more!
There's always more. There's always more. I forgot to mention this. Somebody had asked. I posted a video a few weeks ago very briefly, and then it got taken down. Well, I took it down, just to be clear. And it was because I posted a suspension review that I had filmed a couple of years prior, and I finally got around to editing it and putting it online. And right after I put it online, somebody let me know the company wasn't even making that suspension anymore. So it was kind of useless. But I did do a full review of the Black Forest Industries Powerhouse coilovers. And anyway, I might bring that back just for a nostalgic thing, but I pulled it down because it was pretty useless, and I want to provide useful information for you. So again, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.